bet you're here to see Jody. She told me she quit.
No, I just feel like I don't want to let them down.
Well, quitting is letting them down. Trust me, you went through an entire layout with a sprained ankle and a sprained foot. Trust me, you are their hero.
Okay, okay, I think I can do it.
You're my hero.
I found paragraphs of her book sprinkled throughout your essay.
Oh no.
You panicked, and the solution was to plagiarize? It's okay, I'm not going to tell the dean. You had no idea the pressure that you're under. I'm here for you anytime you need to talk.
Thank you.
Samantha, you live in a big house, and you go to the best schools. You have beautiful things. What else do you need from him?
His time.
I'm in charge of his schedule. I think I can do a better job of arranging time for you both together.
Thank you. I think he's been cheating. I found a receipt. Not a hotel, but it was for jewelry.
Your husband told me to come pick up his planner. Can I grab it?
That's a really nice bracelet.
Thanks.
So, where'd you get it from?
My husband obviously bought you that. So how long you been fucking him for?
I'm a lesbian.
Really?
I've had a crush on you this whole time.
This third segment of the film crystallizes many of the themes that have been quietly accumulating across the narrative, offering a study in power, care, misrecognition, and yearning that is particularly resonant when viewed through a queer, emotionally grounded lens. Because what unfolds between Magdalene and Samantha is not a romance in the conventional sense, but a charged encounter shaped by authority, vulnerability, and the hunger to be seen beyond one's assigned role. The scene begins in interruption and pursuit, with Magdalene searching for Samantha in institutional corridors, a setting that immediately situates their interaction within systems of governance, legacy, and control rather than intimacy. And this context matters because it frames Samantha not simply as an unruly daughter, but as a symbol whose body, behavior, and visibility are already politicized. Samantha's initial hostility, her dismissal of Magdalene as merely her father's secretary, reads as defensive rather than cruel, the reflex of someone accustomed to being managed rather than understood. And for queer audiences, this posture is deeply familiar, echoing the way young women, especially those under scrutiny, often lash out at intermediaries, because direct access to care feels impossible. Magdalene's response is notable for its restraint. She does not escalate the conflict but insists on the conversation, positioning herself not as an enforcer but as a reluctant mediator, someone who understands the stakes yet is weary of playing guardian to other people's secrets. As the dialogue unfolds, the scene becomes less about Samantha's stunts and more about the cost of invisibility, revealing how public misbehavior is often the only language available to someone whose private needs have been ignored. Samantha's drinking, her recklessness, and the intercepted photographs are framed not as moral failures, but as symptoms, acts of displacement that make sense once she articulates the simple, devastating truth at the center of the exchange. What she needs from her father is not privilege or protection, but time. This line lands with extraordinary force because it punctures the logic of substitution that governs so many women's lives, where material comfort is offered in place of emotional presence, and it resonates strongly with queer women who have often been told, implicitly or explicitly, that acceptance can be transactional, conditional, or deferred. Magdalene's reaction, quiet acknowledgement rather than dismissal, is crucial, because it models a form of listening that does not immediately attempt to correct or control. And in that pause, we see the beginnings of a relational shift, one that moves from surveillance to care. Yet the scene does not romanticize this shift. Magdalene remains an agent of the system, reminding Samantha of the election, of optics, of reputation, and this tension between compassion and complicity gives the interaction its emotional complexity, mirroring the real-world experience of queer women who find themselves caring for others while still constrained by institutional roles that limit how that care can be expressed. The power imbalance is ever present, but it is not static. Samantha's vulnerability destabilizes it, forcing Magdalene to confront the human cost of the machinery she helps maintain. And this destabilization is where queer resonance emerges, because it reflects the way intimacy between women often arises not from equality but from shared exposure, from moments where one woman sees another stripped of pretense. Samantha's grief over her mother's death, and her sense that her father's ambition has crowded out his availability, situates her rebellion within a lineage of loss, reminding viewers that young women's bad behavior is frequently a response to unacknowledged mourning, and that queerness itself is often entangled with grief. Not only grief for people lost, but for futures foreclosed or delayed by expectation. Magdalene's promise to rearrange the father's schedule, to create time rather than simply manage damage, becomes an act of quiet resistance within the system, suggesting that care does not always require overthrowing structures, but can sometimes begin with subtle redirection. And for queer audiences, this moment resonates as a fantasy not of escape, but of being prioritized, of someone choosing relational presence over abstract success. The closing exchange, where Magdalene tells Samantha she has become a lovely woman and Samantha returns the compliment, is deceptively simple. Yet it carries layers of meaning when viewed through a queer lens. It is a moment of mutual recognition that stops short of desire but does not deny intimacy, a recognition that validates Samantha's becoming rather than policing it. Society's discomfort with women expressing love for each other is felt here not through overt prohibition but through careful framing. The film allows tenderness but keeps it coded, acceptable, contained within mentorship or caretaking, reflecting the broader cultural pattern where women's closeness is tolerated only when it can be explained away as professional concern or maternal instinct. That discomfort persists because women's emotional bonds, when allowed to stand on their own, threaten narratives that position men, power, and productivity as the central organizing forces of life. And queer women's stories intensify this threat by revealing how much meaning, loyalty, and identity can be generated outside heterosexual or patriarchal structures. Symbolically, Samantha represents the young woman whose queerness is not yet articulated, but whose resistance to prescribed femininity is already visible, whose body becomes a battleground for reputation and control. While Magdalene embodies the older woman who has learned to navigate power by proximity, who understands how to protect others without fully stepping outside the system that enables that protection. Their interaction mirrors real-world pressures on queer women to hide or soften their needs, to translate longing into misbehavior or service, and to accept partial care in lieu of full recognition. Yet it also gestures toward the possibility of solidarity across difference, of women intervening for each other in ways that are not perfect but meaningful. When considered alongside the other segments of the film, this scene reinforces the larger narrative's commitment to portraying queer resonance as something that exists in emotional truth rather than explicit romance, showing how connection can be transformative even when it remains unnamed. For women watching, the scene speaks to the universal desire to be known beyond one's function, daughter, aide, symbol. And for LGBTQ+ viewers, it offers a familiar ache, the recognition of moments where intimacy flickers but must be contained to remain socially legible. This is not a story about taboo or forbidden attraction. It is about the cost of being managed instead of loved, and about the small, radical acts of care that allow women to glimpse themselves as worthy of time, attention, and gentleness. By centering this interaction within the machinery of politics and legacy, the film underscores how deeply personal struggles are shaped by public systems, and how queer women, in particular, often learn to survive by reading between the lines, finding connection in glances, pauses, and promises that are never fully spoken. In its refusal to sensationalize or resolve the tension between Magdalene and Samantha, the film honors the reality that becoming visible is not always a dramatic unveiling, but a series of quiet recognitions, moments where one woman sees another not as a problem to be managed, but as a person in need of care. And in doing so, it affirms the profound emotional truth at the heart of queer experience, that being seen, even briefly and imperfectly, can alter the trajectory of a life.